Only about 6 in 10 workers say they feel confident they'll have enough money to live comfortably in retirement. That's according to the Employee Benefit Research Institute. And interestingly, that lack of confidence isn't always because people haven't saved. Many people have been contributing to retirement plans for years. What they don't often have is clarity. They may have a 401k, an IRA, maybe other investments, but they haven't really seen how all those pieces work together to support retirement. I'm Patrice Sikora here with Jim Kruzan, and today we're talking about something the team recently developed called the Retirement Readiness Report, a tool designed to bring those moving parts together and give people a clearer picture of where they stand. Jim, what were you seeing with clients that made you feel something like this was needed?
Yeah, what we found is that most of the documentation that they had when they were running retirement analyses or thinking about retirement, it all sort of looks the same. And it's essentially just this Monte Carlo analysis. I don't want to get wonky here, but this Monte Carlo analysis that would show probability of success. And they kind of use that as the check-in to see how they're doing. At Kaydan Wealth, we've always tried to promote the idea of, hey, we'd like to work with our clients and build a bigger, bolder retirement. It's not so much that you have the ability and have the account balances that you need to kind of drive this certain level of success. It's about what are all the other things that we're not doing as efficiently and effectively, and if we could, would that drive a better outcome? Would that drive more cash flow? Would that create more experiences? And there just isn't a report out there that can provide all that. It's all dislocated. It's all decentralized. Some folks have never considered some of the things that should be considered or that we consider when talking about retirement. So the idea was, let's put a report together that will give our clients and potential clients who are thinking about hiring us a better opportunity to answer a couple of key questions. One being, how am I doing, or will I be okay? And the other is, what are the other things that I'm missing? And this report does that by bringing a lot of this data that rests on other servers, other software together in one report that gives our clients a really good idea, at least through our eyes, where they really sit from a retirement readiness perspective.
You know, that's really interesting because most people can probably tell you, well, I have this in this IRA, I have this in this 401k, but don't ask me which one I'm supposed to take my money from first, or should I take it from both, or how do I do this? How does your report show them this? I mean, is it a long written document?
It's when I first envisioned this, I thought I want something that I could show on a single piece of paper. Well, it's like 12 to 20 pages long now, covering 12 different key components. And by the way, all these components are individualized to their own situation, which is really, really important. And we talk about a number of things, as I said before, that have to do with money and finance, but that people don't often think about. It's, as you said, people are really good about saying, I've got X amount of money in this particular account, but they don't consider, well, when we're retiring and we're flipping the switch and we're creating cash flow from all these diverse buckets. And by the way, in retirement, we don't spend taxable income, we spend cash flow. You may have built your nest egg off of taxable income or saving taxable income. Retirement's different. If I can generate $5,000 a month from an account that doesn't have any tax consequence, that's all that much better. You've got more resources there to last longer. And I think folks are comfortable saving. They understand the need to save, but often they don't understand what the ramifications are with the way they're saving or where the savings is when we flip the switch and turn things back around. So we want to look at how some of those things affect retirement in retirement planning today.
I think a lot of people don't understand the tax exposure.
Tax exposure is huge, and generally, if you think about it, it's usually a history lesson when we talk about taxes. It's usually this is March, taxes are due mid-April. Let me get all my receipts. Let me get all my 1099s and W-2s, and then I'll use TurboTax or whatever and do my taxes, or I'll send it off to my CPA, who will then do the taxes for me. It's kind of a bit too late to do tax planning, as it would affect the outcome of that taxable year. So it needs to be something that's done on a more regular basis. It needs to be done concurrent with all the other retirement planning that needs to be done. I mean, if you think about it, if you're in, I'm just making this up, a 30% tax bracket across the board, well, guess what? You're going to consume 33% more of your assets more quickly just because of the tax load. So whatever assets you had, it gets spent more quickly. Now, if I could create some of your cash flow from a tax-free bucket, that's a huge amount of savings in terms of your net assets, allowing the runway to be longer or allowing the cash flow that we generate to be greater still. And there's all kinds of trip points we have to worry about. What is your modified adjusted gross income in retirement, and how does that affect your Medicare cost and all the other things? When you take Social Security, that's a taxable event to a large degree. When you have your required minimum distributions and all those buckets are open and all the cash flow is flowing, what tax bracket are you in at that time relative to the first couple of years of retirement? And is there an opportunity to hedge that out and maybe pull some of that income into those years where you have less tax load, as opposed to just sitting passively and getting surprised, and not in a good way, with the taxes you're paying on in those outer years. What
have you found that people are discovering with this report?
Yeah, to a large degree, they're finding out that they're, from an accumulation point of view, they're probably okay. Our clientele are mostly engineers, scientists, executives within mobility technology. Think of that as auto, aeronautical engineering, defense contract work. They make a good living. They're clearly middle class, upper middle class. They're educated. They save, etc. But they've always been taught you need to save and save on a pre-tax basis. So they have these large 401ks, and if that's all they have, they're somewhat burdened about how this unfolds on the back end. And I think that they're happy that the probability of success is a strong number and one that shouldn't cause concern. But when you look at where they'll be relative to where they could have been had we just done a few things differently, it's a big surprise and a big eye-opener. Because now we're talking about being more efficient with respect to taxes, more effective with respect to our savings, not only the amount, but where we save. And we look at that not from the perspective of how does that affect this tax year, but how does that affect the 20 or 30 years of retirement that I'm going to have, where I'm going to use some of these assets and unwind them to create this cash flow that we talked about. Totally eye-opening.
Yeah. When's the best time to start using this plan?
I don't think there's a really bad time. I would say that the best time is when you're inside of, the industry kind of talks about red zone being, those 5 years or so before retirement. I'd go so far as to say 5 to 10 years. I mean, if you're early in your career, there's a lot of things that are going to happen along the way. You probably don't have a really good idea of what you need to live on because you really haven't seen your lifestyle expand yet. But when you're about 10 years away, you've got some idea of what that retirement might look like. And more importantly, we've got a bit of runway. So if we were to apply certain strategies and tactics, we've got some time to make a big difference. We've done this type of report for somebody who is 2 years into retirement. They're already now retired. They've been living on savings a bit for the last 2 years, and now they're at that point where they really want to see what things look like relative to their own assets, because now the whole issue about how do we take it out, what mix of pre-tax, taxable, tax flexible do we look at, that makes a big difference.
And I think you've kind of touched on this, but who is this most helpful for? Oh, actually, before we get to that question, how long does it take to put the report together for someone?
Yeah, it takes a while. It takes several hours of analytics, and then it takes an analyst to kind of pull all that data together, because we look at so many things. We do run kind of a traditional probability of success. We run a kind of a reversal of that, which is a kind of a fire drill, a retirement fire drill. What if death were to occur? We talked about that in one of the previous episodes. That's really important. We talk about risk, both from a risk tolerance perspective, but also a risk capacity, which has more to do with free cash flow, liquidity, where the assets are. And often you'll see a situation where somebody has really very high tolerance for risk, but they have very little capacity for risk because they just don't have the liquid cash they need to sustain them for a period of time. We look at taxes, both from the standpoint of where the taxes are today at retirement, but where they are at certain key hurdle points. What do things look like when we open up Social Security? What will taxes look like at that point? What do taxes look like in the out years when we have required minimum distributions? And you might very well see that you don't have a tax problem. You're in a really low tax bracket initially in retirement, but when you get out to age 73 or 75, still a long bit of retirement left, you're in a much higher bracket. Are there some things that we can do about that? What effect does that have on Medicare? What effect does that have on healthcare costs? On and on.
And I was going to say just before this, who is this most helpful for? But it sounds like it'd be helpful for everyone who wants some kind of clarity.
Yeah, at the firm, we say, look, anybody that's got $500,000 or more liquid, we think it certainly makes some degree of sense. They would be a good candidate, not so much because of the dollar amount. Well, yes, to the extent that we would hope that there'd be some diversity of assets. We now have assets that will have the ability to drive some degree of income. All those things kind of play into what the output looks like with respect to the Retirement Readiness Report.
Is there anything we haven't mentioned, Jim, that you want to make sure we do on this?
I'm really excited about the report. I think it differentiates the firm in terms of how we approach retirement planning. I think it's something that those who are really serious about getting a better idea as to where they are relative to their retirement readiness, it certainly makes some degree of sense. I think we'll have info on this in the show notes. And if you're interested in taking a closer look and having a conversation, just mention the words retirement engineer, and we can certainly make sure that we provide a complimentary retirement readiness report for you as well.
All right, folks, if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And of course, please share it with someone who could benefit. Follow @Kaydan Wealth on social media. Let us know what you think in the comments. Your feedback and topic suggestions help us improve and make a bigger impact. Thanks for supporting our show.
Thank you for listening to The Retirement Engineer with Jim Kruzan. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.kaydanwealth.com or give us a call at 800-638-6900. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of Jim Kruzan and this episode's guests, not necessarily those of Kaydan Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.